Hello there. This feels very weird, but by introduction, my name is Pete Goss, and as you can see, I'm a fat old Cornishman. I'm in a Cornish woods, which are the nicest woods in the country. And why am I doing this? Well, my good friend Mike Hurst called up and said, I'm doing these videos over the COVID period. Can you do your stuff? Talk about isolation, do whatever you want, which is quite a difficult brief. And I have struggled with it a little bit because it's not for me to tell anybody what to do. I'm not an expert in anything. I left school at 16 and went to sea on an ocean-going salvage tug. But I guess if I could do anything and maybe just share a few stories and reflections of things that I've experienced. And so I started going along that track and then just got bogged down with the scale of it and where do you start and end, and you'll all fall asleep within 20 minutes anyway. So what I thought I would do is like these series of little things touching on various subjects, and if you don't like the first one, I won't do any more because I'll have found my place in the world. And so in terms of background, I mean, I've been so lucky in life, and I had an interesting upbringing. I mean, in terms of relating to COVID, my father was an agricultural consultant, and it was in tropical agriculture. So he used to travel around the world doing projects of roughly 2 years duration, and all over the world. And my parents were unique in the day. Back then, you used to send your kids off to boarding school, but we were very fortunate. They decided if they were going to have a family, then they'd have a family. And remarkably, my mum taught us. And you think about it, now I've had kids, I really understand what she did. 4 boys, all as mad as fish, loads of energy, all different age groups. And she taught us on her own, out in the bush. I mean, I can remember when I was very young, Dad had a project in Aden, and it was wild. It was great fun as a child. But I mean, when I look back, we used to come in on a Dakota on the beach. Dad's vehicle was a mine-proof Land Rover with a machine gun on the back. We used to have armed guards around the house. I had machine gun holes, bullet holes up the bedroom wall. And I can remember at night, Dad sitting on Dad's knee, and he'd use an Aldis lamp, a signal lamp, and he'd be chatting with Morse code to all of the ships going up and down the Red Sea, and basically building up a relationship with the captain such that if it really did all kick off, the cunning plan was we would sneak down a wadi where he had a catamaran. It was a shearwater dinghy which he would then launch, and we would sail out into the Red Sea, jump on one of these ships and hitch out of Dodge. And yeah, I remember you know, once a month we would light a car tire on the beach. Sounds terrible now, but this was a smoke signal to help the pilot as he came in on the Dakota to drop off stores and food and various things. And so we were in Aden. My older brother had been born in Nigeria. From there we were in Australia for a few years, Pakistan for a few years. Gosh, I can't even remember. Thailand, yeah, 3 brilliant years in Thailand, a lovely country. 2 years in Bangkok, then we had a year up in, or further down south. And we were in Uruguay for a year. And my mum taught us, unbelievable. She wasn't a teacher. And I think back now, what she did have was routine. And I think if ever anything can aid us through COVID, it's having set routines which give you structure to your life. So, you know, she would have, one of us might be doing a chemistry experiment, another one would be doing English, perhaps writing an essay, or maybe you're doing a dictation. She used to dictate onto a little cassette player, and you'd sit there and keep pressing pause as you wrote it out. Another one, she might be doing history, and another one would be doing art, and we had a set terms, and we have an overarching program. Then we had weekly programs, and we had set breaks, and this gave us structure, and I think helped her deal with what was a huge challenge. I mean, she was teaching us at a level that she hadn't done at school, so and it was all different curriculum. So she would study at night to then teach us, and she took my older brother pretty much up to O level, and I was 14, and then the other two were younger than us. So I didn't go to school till I was 14. Didn't really fit in school. Round peg in a square hole, I think, and left at 16, and wanted to go to the University of Life, and got a job on tugs in Plymouth, and spent time on a salvage tug, and joined the Royal Marines, did 9 years running around with a shooting stick, and then since then kind of ended up running a whole series of projects, mainly in sailing, but I've been up to the North Pole I think 4 times, and done some historical projects, and a complete variety. I've sailed around the world single-handed. We design the boats, build the boats ourselves. In a sense, our projects sit on 4 legs, which would be innovation, technology, challenge, and adventure. So we're very interested in exploring new ground and concepts, and then putting to the test on the racetrack. And we raise the money ourselves. We've done the whole lot, and so I guess I thought I might wander through some of these projects and maybe share some insights. So I'll talk about the single-handed around the world. I think that could be one of them. I'll talk about the British Steel Challenge, which was a fully crewed race around the world the wrong way with amateurs who'd never sailed before, and maybe draw some parallels from that. I kayak around Tasmania, having never kayaked before, with a good friend Andy Warrender, and not realising at the time that this is one of the epics in the kayaking world. But talk about, Mike was saying, can you talk about staying positive, mental resilience, all things like that. So yeah, so I guess that's my introduction. As a fat old Cornishman, balding, although I'm quite proud of my COVID bush, which is going to come off soon. At the moment, my wife and I are exploring the world on a 45-foot cruising yacht. It's a beautiful boat, it's an adventure boat. The kids left home, so we left home too. And having raced around the world a few times, I'd always said I'd like to slow down and explore these wonderful places that I've rushed past racing, and we've been doing that for 2.5 years, wonderful years in the Atlantic. Tracy made the big leap. She'd only done 2 night sails when we set off, and here we are 2 years later. Man, she's amazing. We do it all just the 2 of us, and I think that's a real demonstration. She wanted to step out of her comfort zone, and you know, we sold our house, we put everything into this, we untied the boat, we set off in December, which you wouldn't normally do, but that was when the boat was built, and we crossed the Bay of Biscay in the winter, and sick and cold and miserable, and you know, her first night watch was 20 minutes. It was a big deal, but now, you know, knowledge dispels fear, and I think one of the big tragedies of life is a fear of failure. And I know many people far more talented than I would ever be. In fact, that's most of the world's population. But I do see people who are just held back by this innate fear of failure. And of course, failure is a part of life. It's not failure, it's lessons. And the key is, if you do have a disaster or you make a mistake, is and this is partly touching on mental resilience, is you got to let it go. You just got to let it go. But don't cut adrift the lessons. Be very honest with yourself. Really reflect deeply. If something's gone wrong 99.9% of the time, it's because of a decision that you've made. It's no good blaming other people. Someone might have let you down, but then perhaps you put them in the wrong position. I don't know. So make sure, having let something go, that you take the lessons with you into the future. And I think that's one of the things with COVID. We go through this. Change is a funny thing. We hate change, and yet we love it as well. You know, we love change. We go on holiday, but we hate to be changed. And I think COVID has brought a massive amount of change in our lives. And I think the first thing is to accept it. You just got to accept it. It's the reality. It's nature. It's life. I don't think of it as an enemy. I don't think of it as a battle and a strategy required to vanquish it. I mean, it's just a virus. It's a pretty miserable virus. It has no brain, it has no strategy, it has no goal, bar replicating itself. But it is incredible. It's got to the Falkland Islands. And why has it got to the Falkland Islands? Because of our stupidity. So why are we in lockdown? We're in lockdown for others. Obviously there's self-interest. I don't want to get COVID. Nobody wants to get COVID, but the real reason we're in lockdown is for others. As a society, we want to save others. So in a sense, look at it as a sacrifice on the benefit of others. And one of the things as we're coming out of what strikes me, I'm not an expert, but there was a lot of fear rightly around COVID, and the country was amazing. We all went to ground, did what was meant to be done, and the results have been fantastic. The NHS hasn't been overrun. And you can always pick holes and things, but look at the big picture. I think we're doing really well. One thing I notice now is a lot of anger and people blame being sprayed around. But everyone's doing their best in this. Everyone is doing their best. Nobody's getting up and setting out to do a bad job. Big mistakes will be made. It's never been done before. So, the lessons that we learn from this, and this is where we must have a big investigation, are going to be fantastic for the benefit of others in the future. But goodness me, I feel like I'm really rambling now. But touching on this mental strength, I think this is a big thing, is being able to let go. The last life is gone. It's irrelevant. We had a great time. Remember the good times, the beers, the friends, the parties, all the rest of it. But that's gone. We're now in this world. And let's make the best of what we have here now, because life isn't lived in the past and it isn't lived in the future. It's now, here, today. And let's also remember that actually, we're not in Syria having chemical bombs dropped on us. We're not going through a world war. We're not doing these things. And I'm not belittling what we're going through, but, a little bit of context. If we want something, we can get on the internet and it gets dropped to the door. We're all eating well, we're all warm, we've had the most amazing spring. My dad always used to say that, you might think you own your watch or your top or your car or whatever it is, but you don't own them at all. They're just passing things, it's materials. What you truly own is time. Now spend it wisely. And one of the things I think COVID has done, in a sense, has gifted us time. We all live such busy lives and we're run by, there's endless timetables, aren't there? And suddenly a lot of those are irrelevant. And initially we're a little bit lost with time. And I always go off on one trip a year and clear the hard drive, come back imbued with energy and ideas. And maybe COVID is an opportunity to make the most of time. And, if you have young children, it's tough. I know it's tough. I can't imagine what my mum went through with us. But wouldn't it be cool in 10 years' time if those little kids came up, Mum, Dad, do you know when that COVID virus came? That was the best. We learned to bake, we learned to garden, we learned to make shopping lists, we learned to cook, we learned all of these really good skills that get you through life, real tangible skills that as a parent you can give to your kids. And be kind to yourself. I see people setting these goals that are just pretty much unattainable or a misery to get to, and actually that's possibly not the thing. You want to have quality time with your kids. I am going all over the place here, but but I think that's the mental resilience, is let it go, learn the lessons and start moving forwards. I always used to say at the end of a project with crew and people who work with me, is you should always leave the project knowing what you want to do next, because otherwise you're going to walk away from it looking backwards over your shoulder and you'll always be trapped back there. So I think shake things off, pick yourself up, and then move forward. And that then is where this structure I alluded to with my mum is very, very important, is really have structure initially to help you fill that void of God, I'm not going to work, I don't know what to do, I'm a little bit lost. Have a list. Get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You don't want to, when we come out of this, you don't want to look back and think, I bloody wasted what was the most amazing, unique thing that was thrown at me. I didn't want it, I didn't ask for it, but I got it. So don't allow yourself. I found this with single-handed racing. One of the problems racing single-handed is we as human beings are competitive naturally, and it's a good thing, competition. It can get unhealthy, and that's where you need to be sportsmanlike and you have all your values and all the rest of it. But if you're racing single-handed, your performance can drop right down, and you're completely unaware of it because you don't have a measure. Even our family, we measure ourselves. You know if you're a bit off because other people give you this benchmark. And so when you're sailing single-handed, you're measuring with information, data, performance. Funny thing is you have to watch your urine, make sure it's clear, because a common thing is you get dehydrated, which affects your performance. And so you, as a single-hander, you break things down. Don't find yourself in your pajamas at 11 o'clock watching the bloody morning television. You want to get up at 7, do a bit of exercise, a bit of cleaning, that's important. So, but these are some of the things I think I might touch on as if you are interested, I can perhaps think about. I was drowning when Mike said, just do your stuff. And Tracy and I built a house, and we were or an extension, and we were drowning in, where do you start? There's regulations, electrics, plumbing, all the rest of it. And then we just thought one Sunday, let's just bloody well get on with it. So we put our tea down, we'd eaten our toast, and we gone out with the shovels and we started digging the foundations. And in digging the foundations, we'd taken the first step. And as we were digging the foundations, we've got to put some drains in here. And then there seemed to be a natural flow to it. And having thought the drains out and got some help and advice, we put them in, and then we covered that over. And then, we're going to have some walls, so let's cover that. So break it down into manageable chunks, and don't think about the house. Think about the bits. And suddenly, before you know it, you've got a house. And we were really proud of it. We had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. But so I'm going to stop now and wish you all fair winds.